Today I'm looking at the new Linear Polarizer from MAVEN Filters. So as I record this video, MAVEN Filters has released their second Kickstarter, Wave 2 of their filter lines. They're adding lots of product options to their existing filter line. There's a whole variety of them out there. These include everything from Dark CPLs, which I'll talk about in another video, talking about linear polarizers, which we're talking about today, and they've added all sorts of different stops for their ND filters, all the way up to a 20-stop ND filter. So all sorts of new options happening. So I backed MAVEN's first Kickstarter for their original filter set, which is a CPL and some ND filters and a cool case. And I did an unboxing video on that. I'll put that down in the description below. But it was really a great Kickstarter, very well run, well organized, and I've been very happy with the filters that I got from that. So I was lucky enough to get early access to some of the filters being offered in Wave 2, including the Linear Polarizer. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what is a Linear Polarizer, what it can do, some of the features, and dive into that. Now this is a first look video. And for the Linear Polarizer, it's actually my first time ever even using a linear polarizer. So not only is it a new company, it's a new type of filter for me. So we'll see how that goes. Normally I've at least used the types of filters before and it's a different brand or something like that. So we'll see how that goes. We'll talk about the linear polarizer and go from there. But again, this is a first look. This isn't a review. I'll show you some of the features and talk through using it out in the field. Come out here to one of my favorite waterfalls, and that's where we're going to sort of work through this linear polarizer, see how it works. But it's just a first look. So it's not an in-depth review, but I thought it'd be helpful to get these first looks out there while the Kickstarter's going on, in case you're on the fence as to whether you want to pick up these filters or maybe just learn more about a linear polarizer. But first, before we dive into the linear polarizer, let's talk a little bit about MAVEN Filters in general. Maybe you haven't used MAVEN Filters. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing about MAVEN Filters. So let's talk about some of the things MAVEN Filters brings to the table. First, they are a magnetic filter. Anyone that watches my channel knows I pretty much only exclusively use magnetic filters these days. They just make it so easy and efficient to make filter changes in the field. No more stuck filters. So the MAVEN filter products are magnetic filters. On top of that, they are color-coded filters. So you can see here, the filters get colors, and so it makes it easy to identify the filter either by looking through this cool little case they come in. You can see right in there and see the filter and see which filters are in the case. Or if you're anything like me who's constantly forgetting to take a filter off a lens and it ends up getting packed in the bag, makes it super easy to look in the camera bag and see which filter, where you left that filter, which lens it's on. So the color coding is super nice. Now MAVEN goes one step further and they add little knurls, as you can see on these filters here. They add these little knurls, and those are sized to the filter, as in they're different across all the filters. So if you can potentially tell which filter is which just by touch, just by running your finger over it and telling which filter it is. Super handy, perhaps if you're out there in the dark at night and you only have one or two filters in your pocket, you can actually differentiate by touch. MAVEN brings tier 1 color accuracy to their ND filters. That means no color cast. A lot of filter products out there, you'll get a touch of a color cast to it. You'll put an ND filter on and the colors in the image will shift a certain direction. MAVEN Filters worked very hard, tried lots of different film options to come up with a tier 1 color accuracy ND filter. Now when it comes to CPLs and polarizers that we're going to look at today, CPLs, due to how they work, tend to almost always get a little bit of a shift towards yellow. Even the first round of MAVENs had that. But MAVEN Filters works really hard to minimize that. And finally, MAVEN Filters has a lifetime warranty against manufacturer defects. So they've got your back in case something were to be not quite right with your filter. And finally, MAVEN Filters brings a high level of customer support to their filters. And it's evident through their series of Kickstarters. And if you just watch their interactions online, they're responsive and ready to help you out with your filters. So like I said, I came out to one of my favorite waterfalls in this particular park, Cedar Falls, to play with these filters, get my first look at them as we talk through it. So we're going to pack this up real quick and we're going to head on down the trail, get to the falls, and we'll talk a little more about the LPLs and how they work. Okay, so let's talk polarizing filters. If I could only own one filter for my landscape photography, it'd be a polarizing filter of some sort. They are just so helpful for taking the glare off of scenes. You know, anything from the trees, the foliage, the green, just give them a little bit more of a saturated feel to a scene like I'm shooting right here, which is this water with reflections. And this big pool of water up here with a little bit of glare on it, and in the rocks covered in water that's also getting a little bit of glare, losing a little bit of the detail. If I could only own one filter, it's going to be a polarizing filter every time. And in addition to removing that glare, it usually gives you just like a half stop to one stop, sometimes all the way to like 1.5 stops of loss of light, which lets you slow that shutter speed down just a touch so that you can start to get that nice look in the waterfall. So that's another advantage of the polarizing filter. Okay, so with this Wave 2 Kickstarter that Maven's doing, they released a linear polarizer. And linear polarizers were popular back in the film days, but then when auto metering and in mirrors and DSLR cameras and things like that started to become popular, the linear polarizers, the way they filtered and polarized the light, would confuse those meters and those sensors. So they switched to a circular polarizer, which is a linear polarizer with a quarter wave bend to it. It sort of gets the light in a way that the meters can understand it and everything like that. And those are what works with a DSLR type camera that we're probably a lot of us are really used to. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be able to go into the physics of it and all of that. That's, yeah. If you want to read more, the Kickstarter page has lots of great information on it, and MAVEN Filters sort of explains linear polarization versus circular polarization. But for us, linear polarizers with mirrorless cameras, because there's no mirror in there, their sensors can handle a linear polarizer, which is why MAVEN Filters brought it out. There's enough mirrorless cameras, it continues to grow, and linear polarizers will probably make a comeback. So what are the advantages of a linear polarizer? So I've not used one, and I had to do some reading, and this is going to be my first outing with it. Anyways, a linear polarizer, one of the big advantages is that the CPLs, I've mentioned before, have a slight yellow hue to them that it introduces. Even Maven's first round, it's just the way the physics of that particular filter works, the CPL, it can't completely remove the hue. Well, linear polarization opens up the door to some new films and allowed an improvement in the color accuracy with it. So that's one of the big advantages that a linear polarizer brings, is that color accuracy aspect. And now that there's enough mirrorless cameras out there, it makes sense to release them and potentially become the default polarization filter for photographers. Okay, and another benefit of the linear polarizing filter is it has a variable effect when you stack it on top of another polarizing filter. So for example, if you take an original MAVEN CPL, stack the linear polarizer on top of it, you get another 1.3 to 5 stops of light reduction. Handy if you're trying to change that shutter speed for some cool effect for water or something like that. Similar, stack a linear polarizing filter on top of another MAVEN linear polarizing filter, and you get that same effect. And this can also be applied to the Dark CPLs. If you stack the linear polarizing filter on top of the ND3 Dark CPL, you will now be able to turn the linear polarizing filter and get up to 1.3 to 5 stops of reduction of light into the camera. Makes it real handy if you want to make a subtle adjustment to your ND filter, because maybe you're out there with a 3-stop and a 6-stop and you're like, you know, a 4-stop would be perfect, and you don't want to change your camera settings for some reason. You can use an LPL filter, linear polarizing filter, to make that change for you. So another really cool effect. We will play with that just a little bit here as we walk through this. So with that, let's jump to the camera, do a shot without the filter, put the linear polarizing filter on, play with it, and then we'll stack them. Okay, the first shot we're going to get here is no polarizing filter. Using a histogram, ISO 125, aperture f11, and it looks like I'm about a 1/4 shutter speed here. We'll get my focus point out there, watch that histogram, just take this shot. And one of the things to notice with this, I've got this nice reflection of the water of the falls, but I've got a lot of distracting glare off to the sides as well. So, and that's where the polarization filter, that's why I would normally use a polarizing filter here, is because it helps me see the detail in the rocks up towards the front, and helps me remove some of the glare in the water. So this was the shot, no polarizing filter. Okay, so we've got the shot lined up here, and now we're going to grab the linear polarizer here. And like I said, color-coded blue like the normal circular polarizer, but the knurls on it have like a triangle raised pattern on it. So that helps you differentiate between the linear polarizer and then the normal CPL that came with the original Kickstarter. So we're going to toss this on here. You can see it darkens a little bit, normal for a polarizer. So now with the polarizing filter, you just turn it on the front. It slides inside the magnetic adapter. It rotates in there. And so there we go. This has a fair amount of glare in it. Let's fix the exposure. Okay, fair amount of glare. Now we're going to turn this filter. And there we go. This is right about maximum polarizing effect. And then you can back off of it if you want. Come off this way, get a little bit more. Like I said, you season the taste with a polarizing filter to get the look that you want. I tend towards a more polarized side for better or for worse, but season the taste, that's how you adjust it. So this is a linear polarizer. We're going to take a couple shots with it. Now, one of the things that I want to do in this particular scene is I have the water coming down, and I do like that reflection in front. And what I'm trying to do is remove it off of the edges. So lots of reflection. If I rotate this way, I've removed the reflection off from the edges, but I've maintained it right there in the middle, which is what I want. So let's take a few shots like this, and then we'll play with some of the stacking. Again, as I sort of work through these shots, the polarizing filter, it's removing that glare from this pond of water, this pool of water in front of me, as well as the rock up by the falls. So where the falls come down and split like that, there's lots of moisture, and it's the glare from the sun hitting it is hiding the detail of that rock. So the polarizing filter removes that glare, helps me see right through that. Again, we're using the linear polarizer on this to do that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to grab one of my normal CPL filters, put it on, get it adjusted, then I'm going to stack the LPL with it, which should give me that variable ND effect, that variable density effect on the image. So we're going to try that. Let me grab my normal ND. Okay, so I got my original MAVEN filter CPL on there. Got my polarization set just about right. We're going to go ahead and take that shot. Okay, so now we are going to try the stacking feature. We're going to grab my linear polarizer. Again, it's blue because it's a polarizer, and it's got the nubs on it a little more like they got a raised section on them, sort of like this. Okay, so then we're going to stick this on, and then I'm going to rotate it. Now, this filter has markings at the top. It says 1.3 through 5, so you can set it with 1.3 at the top, and I'm going to rotate it towards the 5 while holding the other CPL in place. Change my camera settings and take that picture. And if I want to let more light into the camera, I can rotate the linear polarizer, say over to just 2 stops of light reduced. Change my camera settings and take that shot. So that was pretty neat, adding that variable effect to it. Like I said, I did that particular test with an original MAVEN CPL with a linear polarizing filter on top, and you can rotate and get that darkening effect. Really cool for small adjustments if you have a gap in your ND filters. That will also work if you do 2 linear polarizers. I only have 1, so I can't test that, but it'll also work with a Dark CPL filter. So if you're using like a 3-stop, put the linear polarizer on and do that. Not going to demonstrate that right here, but it'll work with that as well. So I'm just going to take a couple more shots, then we're going to take a quick look at my notes, and then wrap this thing up. Okay, so yeah, that worked really well. That was my first time playing with a linear polarizing filter. Really, that variable effect is really cool. Play with that some more. I'll do more in-depth tests on some of the color accuracy and things like that. I did not notice anything unusual with it. It seemed pretty good to me just from this first review. Again, more in-depth reviews, as I've said before. I don't like to do reviews until I've actually used the product for a while, and this is really my first morning out with it, and my first time ever with a linear polarizer. So yeah, we've got that. Okay, and just one more thing real quick before I go. If you've never used magnetic filters before, if you're new to them, new to MAVEN, new to magnetic filters in general, you know, I love them. They're super fast and easy to change and replace. They just click on, click off, super easy, real easy to do in the field filter changes, stack them, rotate them the whole bit. But if you're wondering, you do need a magnetic adapter to attach them. This is my widest angle lens. It's an 82 millimeters, so it's got a magnetic adapter. It just fits right into those 82 millimeter threads and lets me put an 82 millimeter filter on. Not all my lenses are 82 millimeters. Some are smaller. So like this one right here, my 24-120 has a 77 millimeter filter thread on it. So use a step-up ring for those. And this has a step-up ring on it. Adapts the filter from 77 millimeters to 82 millimeters. So then I only have to buy 82 millimeter filters and it'll work across all of my lenses. So if you're new to magnetic filters, that's how you get them on there. An adapter ring on your largest one, step-up rings for your others, and it'll let you use the same filter across all your different lenses. Okay, so that's it. That was my first look at the linear polarizing filter. Not only the linear polarizing filter from MAVEN, but linear polarizing filters in general. But yeah, very promising. Well worth checking out the MAVEN Kickstarter, and if it's already passed, I'm sure they'll be available on the MAVEN website as well. So yeah, good stuff. Anyways, I hope you found this helpful, and if you did, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see future landscape photography content from me, including tips, tricks, behind the scenes, mini gear reviews, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And thank you for watching.